All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast. My name is Rick Butler, joined right next to Ryan Shumpert as we are here at the NCAA tournament. Finally, all roads have led to Lexington, Kentucky. Ryan, I can't say that we're in Rupp Arena right now. We're sort of adjacent to it in this concert hall, if you will, but it's been a pretty okay space.
Yeah, the something center. I can't remember.
Okay.
Maybe the Commerce something center. It's a little more of a legit version of Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center because it's just all the same thing.
Yeah.
I know it's the same. It's like Rupp Arena at the something center. But it's an actual. The center's an actual separate area here. Unlike Thompson Bowling Arena, Food City Center, which is just the same. It's all the same thing.
The Central Bank Center.
Central Bank. I knew Central was in there.
Has it been a little bit weird for you just coming back to a place that you're familiar with, but for a completely different reason? I mean, I've watched games here at Rupp myself, but asking you.
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like once the games get rolling, it's really not. And some of this because of what's it called again? The Commerce.
The Central Bank.
The Central Bank. I don't know why I keep on
Bank.
saying Commerce. Central Bank, like obviously none of the media stuff we ever do during the regular season's games is in here, so that part's a little bit different. But now when you're out there watching and you're looking up and seeing all the seats, it's that part's definitely a little bit weird, especially with a lot of orange in here. That part, and I'm sure it felt weird for the people earlier in the day with Louisville. A lot of red in here for the first game.
Yeah, and there were certainly, there's plenty of Kentucky fans here who are just here to enjoy a little bit of March Madness, but obviously maybe trying to diminish some of the red and orange that was in the building as well. But let's go ahead and get right into it. You're just going to be recapping for 10, 15 minutes or so, however long it takes to get our thoughts out. Tennessee's opening round win over Wofford. 2-seed Tennessee defeats 15-seed Wofford 77-62. It wasn't necessarily drama-free, but Tennessee was in control the whole way of the game. Ryan, I have some positive thoughts to get into, but I'll kind of open it up to you first. Just first impressions of the game. It's probably been an hour or so, 90 minutes or so since this game ended. Chaz Lanier scored 29 points. Kai Ziegler had a double-double, 12 points and 12 assists. What are you kind of thinking about here as we start to switch the page into round two on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said was pretty accurate. Not quite a drama-free win for Tennessee, but they were in control the entire time. It felt like Wofford got Tennessee's lead to single digits a couple different times in the second half, and quickly Tennessee pushed it back out. Chaz Lanier hit a three-pointer on one of those occasions. I think he had a couple mid-range jump shots and consecutive possessions. But I guess the game as a whole, just in a lot of ways had the makeup of a 15-seed upsetting a 2-seed when you look at the fact that it was, like we knew it was going to be, very low possession game. Both teams had 58 possessions, which is extremely, extremely slow-paced game. And then Wofford, who's been red hot from three-point range entering this game, shot the ball really well from three-point range, 11 of 26, 42% from three-point range. So you combine those two factors, that made for what could have been a very competitive game, and a game where Tennessee was kind of grinding it out in the final minutes. But I thought Tennessee did a good job of being efficient offensively. Certainly Chaz Lanier was spectacular shooting the basketball, and then they weren't fantastic on the glass, but they did really win the turnover battle. They took care of the basketball themselves, forced Wofford into some turnovers, and did a good job of getting out in transition and scoring some baskets, really more at the foul line than anything else when Wofford did turn the ball over. So credit to Tennessee, where a game that could have been closer than it was, they played solid and got to the next round with a win.
Yeah, great thoughts. I mean, when you told me during our preview session that this was going to be a more low possession game, the first thing that came to my head was turnovers. Tennessee can't afford to waste any of their opportunities on that end of the court. With only 6 turnovers, I thought they did their job. You're right. There were some times where, and I do think you give Wofford a little bit of credit. Now, maybe some people have different opinions on that, but I thought the Terriers fought throughout the game, and they weren't a team that went away easily. It barely went away, covered the spread. That was about 18.5 sitting out before the game. But one of the things that I just take away and gives me a little bit more optimism maybe heading into this tournament, or at least what is beyond, is just that Tennessee's Tennessee's guards came to play. Again, we just talked about Chaz Lanier, 29 points on 11 of 22 from the floor, 6 of 13 from three-point range. By the way, the 6 three-pointers that he made ties a couple of other big Tennessee players with 6 made three-pointers in a single game in the NCAA tournament. first win, I believe it was, or first time getting that record in a win since Santiago Vescovi did it.
Okay.
I believe just a couple years ago. But Chris Lofton, Dalton Connect, also guys who did it. So Linear joining high company there. And then Zakai Ziegler going for 12 points and 12 assists. And he looked every bit like the leader that Tennessee knows him to be. And I think that's a great place for Tennessee to be. So 15-point win. Tennessee did not cover the spread. Wofford kept fighting throughout the 40-minute stretch, but I thought Tennessee did a nice job to keep them at arm's length. And ultimately, kind of one of my takeaways after the game was just not trying to get any style points here. It's sure nice to maybe get a bigger win, cover spread, whatever. You can add lots of things to that bullet point list, but ultimately Tennessee is going to live to play on Saturday, and that's mainly what you're looking for out of these NCAA tournament games.
Yeah, no, for sure. Man, that's obviously the number one thing. And I thought Tennessee, did a decent job of managing some minutes. They've got Bishop Boswell some run for Zakai Ziegler in the first half. So still 36 minutes from Ziegler, 35 from Chaz Lanier, 33 from Jemai Mashak. So it wasn't like they got a ton of rest. But, man, I'd imagine from here on out Zakai's going to play about 40 minutes just about every game or pretty close to it if he can stay out of foul trouble. So to get a little bit of a blow is good. And then, I think Chaz is the big story. His first NCAA tournament game for him to come out and scored 29 points and knocked down some shots both from three-point range and the mid-range. I don't think he hardly scored a basket at the rim. Wofford kind of did what I expected him to do defensively. They really packed the paint and dared Tennessee to make some jump shots over them, and they did enough of that, 10 from three-point range, a number more from from mid-range. And I did think to Tennessee's credit, they did a good job of attacking the basket and getting to the foul line. Not a ton of shots at the rim, but they did shoot 22 free throws. And that's been a common theme for them in a number of games as of late. So I think that was for sure a good sign. And, again, you look at the stat sheet for Tennessee, it's very heavy on Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler. And, you probably would like to see a little bit more balance, but at the same time, those are the guys. Those are the all-SEC guys. Those are guys that showed up on All-American teams. And there's other guys that have played well for Tennessee down the stretch and other guys that are capable of scoring, 20 points on any given game. But those are guys that need to lead Tennessee. And just one game, but they started off the NCAA tournament with a strong performance.
Yeah, and again, that was my takeaway leaving the game was just that, hey, the guys who are going to lead you in this tournament are going to be Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler. That's not to say that everybody else who's touches the court is not going to be important. Rick Barnes talked about it after the game. He said that he liked what both Felix Okpara and Cade Phillips brought to the table today. But, those are your two shooters. Those are your two leaders. And not that this is breaking news, but sort of just to reiterate something that I would assume that most people know or at least have a good idea of. But with Zakai Ziegler being the leader of the team, Ryan, this was, at least for me, one of the closest that I think I've ever sat to the Tennessee bench during a game. And so while we still couldn't hear all the minutia of things that were going on, it's so evident just to see how much they're in communication with Ziegler, how much that just a simple look at each other from Rick Barnes to Ziegler or Justin Gainey to Ziegler, how much that can really influence things. And again, I'm not breaking that news or anything, but just sort of reiterating it from my point of view was a bit of a different perspective today. So seeing what he was able to do, kind of command the floor, command what Tennessee wanted to do, be able to relay things from the bench. Again, it's NCAA tournament. These aren't new things, but I saw it from a different perspective today and felt like it was noteworthy.
No, definitely so. And I guess, two more notes I guess I have on the game, and I might think of something else. But Zakai becomes the single or the career assist record holder in this game. He became the single season record holder. I think that was the Texas game last week in Nashville. And Johnny Darden, who Zakai Ziegler passed, was in the building, was on hand.
Was he really?
To watch it, and I saw
That's
Tennessee
great.
Posted out a picture of the two of them after the game. So that's pretty cool, and I'll tell you what, Johnny Darden is – those two they got a long lead over, I think it's C.J. Watson who's in third place. So those two have a big distance. And I guess something else that stands out about this game, Rick Barnes has talked about how he thinks the NCAA tournament gets officiated differently and how there's more freedom of movement compared to SEC play. And certainly that's a big deal with a guy like Chaz Lanier and a guy like Jordan Gainey who move a ton off the ball for Tennessee. Tennessee has them running off of doing some floppy actions, running off of pin downs, and those guys get held and pulled all the time. I asked Chaz Lanier about it after the game, and he said, you're more just surprised at this point when you're not getting held running off a screen. It felt like there was a little bit more freedom of movement, to Rick Barnes' point in this game. And some of it, it's kind of hard to say. All right, you're facing a SoCon team in Wofford. Is it just a team that's not as physical, doesn't have as many athletes? But it felt like both Chaz Lanier and Jordan Gainey, to a lesser extent, were able to get off screens and get shots up at a higher clip than they have in the past. So there's a couple times where there was fouls called with them running off of screens when they were being grabbed. So I'm curious. That was a good sign for Tennessee today. I'm curious to see what that looks like moving forward into the next round of the tournament.
Yeah, and if you had just mentioned this, my bad. I was putting a video on YouTube, but pretty much a five-man rotation for Tennessee today. Only 9 combined minutes from Boswell and Dubar off the bench. But just looking at some of these stats, I think we've mentioned them. We know what Lanier and Ziegler did. Jemai Meshack right behind them with 9, including a big 3 to start the game. I thought that was a great way to sort of settle him into the game, give him a little bit of confidence. I think he might have even had 7 points in the first half, which was certainly good for Tennessee to see. Felix Okpara and Jordan Gainey both end with 7 points. Tennessee has 15 assists on the night, not counting the 2 assists that I had to Chris Lofton.
I was going to bring that up. See, you're such a me guy.
See, but
I was going to bring it up myself. I get it. It's a tough spot for you because you got to have that come up on the podcast.
That is tough.
But I was going to bring it up.
Team assists. I was trying to figure out my way to get it in. Now I feel.
Well, I'll tell the story for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Something was dropping from the sky.
Kermit the Frog. No, it was the Geico Geckos, but it looked like a Kermit
Geico
the Frog.
Geckos. Was it some sort of gift card?
I don't know.
It was like at the Chick-fil-A house when they drop them from the top of the building. It was like that, and it fell behind where we were sitting in the stands, and Chris Lofton was sitting in the stands.
And there's like a gap, like a 5-foot gap.
Yeah, was sitting in the stands front row behind us, and I think Rick was turning around and saw it, and Chris was going for the catch. Is that correct? And he couldn't reach it, and Rick went over and he asked that Chris, you want him, and he said yeah, and Rick went over there and tossed him up. So 2 assists. 2 assists for Rick Butler today. Yeah. So pretty strong performance.
I knew he was looking at him, and I sort of did. I kept my eyes backwards in case he looked over to me because I was getting, hey, you need those? And he wanted both. He wanted 2 Kermit the Frog Geckos. So maybe 17 unofficial assists on the night, although I'm not part of the team. But whatever. Who doesn't like some pat statting, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Or some pat statting.
Some stat padding.
It's almost 11. Some stat padding. Thank you very much. Again, number 2, Tennessee advances to the round of 32 with a 77-62 win over 15 seed Wofford. Any other kind of thoughts on this game? I'm just trying to kind of skim through the stats. Tennessee had 14 points off of turnovers compared to Wofford 0. So even with the 6 that Tennessee had, the Terriers did not capitalize on. Tennessee shot 68% from the line, 36% from behind the arc, and then 48% from the floor overall.
Yeah, I think rebounding was good for Tennessee in the first half, not as good in the second half. I just think that's going to be, to me, a common theme that I'm watching going forward. Just because it's kind of gotten Tennessee in their last couple of losses, and there's been a number of areas. I think this is like the 4th of their last 6 games they've given up double-digit offensive rebounds. That feels like that's going to come back to bite them at some point here in the tournament. So that's one area that I would probably more than anything that I'd say, all right, Tennessee needs to be better there going forward.
Certainly something there to watch for, a little nugget as Tennessee prepares for Saturday's round of 32 contest. That is either going to be against UCLA or Utah State. Now, as we record this right now, adjacent to Rupp Arena, the Bruins are up 20 points on the Utah State Aggies. Is that it?
It is.
The Aggies. So it looks like the Bruins are going to be Tennessee's opponent. It's going to be a 2-7 matchup, just chalk as it goes through. I don't know, any kind of just – I would imagine that maybe we podcast on Friday, just another quick preview about what UCLA brings to the table. But if it is the Bruins – any kind of quick thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think probably the team I would, if I was Tennessee, I'd rather see, just because I think you kind of know what you're getting. To me, they just seem like a worse version of Tennessee. Good defensively, not bad offensively, but a little bit shaky. So they're not. The one thing they're really good at is forcing turnovers. So that's going to be a key in this game. Another team that plays a slow pace. Obviously, Mick Cronin is known for his defense, kind of similarly to Rick Barnes. So those are 2 things I would watch for, and then just sitting out there and watching the first half of that game. Ademara, I guess that's how you pronounce his name,
Okay.
a mountain of a man down low. 7'3".
Heard about that.
Just a behemoth, and he was given.
Gargantuan.
Not that his numbers this season have been all that great, because they really haven't, but he was giving Utah State fits in the first half, and as we talk about rebounding, that will be something I'll be watching. And I just was watching the first half, and I thought that I had was, all right, UCLA could be a game where you feel like Tennessee really misses J.P. Estrella with their second center being 6'8" and Cade Phillips, or maybe I guess he's 6'9", but a little bit on the shorter side. So not that really matters at this point. They haven't had J.P. Estrella all season, but one quick thought watching that game, and we'll have a full story out scouting the Bruins before we by early Friday morning.
Yeah, that sounds good. I will. I'm no medical expert. That is potentially my better half, but I would recommend an ice bath maybe for Felix Akbar, as that game did have a little bit of physicality to it, and certainly he is going to be needed on Saturday back in Rupp Arena against the winner of UCLA Utah State, as that wraps up here late Thursday night. All right, my friend, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for us, unless you got anything else.
That's all I got.
All right, well, we will, today's Thursday night. We will come back to recording tomorrow. Probably won't be too long, but just give you a little bit of a preview for UCLA to take to your local watch party, maybe some good nuggets to impress your friends. But otherwise, Tennessee leaves the first day of the NCAA tournament with a 77-62 win over Wofford. That is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. Make sure to keep getting your coverage over at RockyTopInsider.com. We will have so much stuff coming out for you. We have previews for the next game. We have recaps of the previous game. Make sure to subscribe to Rocky Top Insider YouTube account so you don't miss any post-game coverage. We will have it all for you. No need to go anywhere else. Thank you so much for listening to the show today. For Ryan, I'm Rick. Catch you back for the next one.